Alright guys, so you've seen my review for the new Halloween movie, you know that I really dug the hell out of it. But what do I think of the original Halloween sequel? Let's take a look. Halloween 2 is directed by Rick Rosenthal, is written by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, and brings back Donald Pleasence and Jamie Lee Curtis as Dr. Loomis and Laurie Strode. And it takes place right after the first Halloween movie. It literally takes place the same night after Dr. Loomis shoots Michael Myers 6 times, or 7 in this movie. He falls off the balcony, and then he suddenly disappears. That ending to the first Halloween is just so creepy, it kept me awake for an entire night. I could not get any sleep after seeing that movie for the first time. But if you were curious on what happens next, then this is the movie for you. And it's kind of the same idea. Laurie Strode's taken to a hospital, Dr. Loomis is still on the hunt for Michael Myers, and things get escalated even further once we find out that Laurie Strode is actually the younger sister to Michael Myers. He killed his older sister, Judith, and was about to kill Laurie, and this is pretty much him wanting to finish the job. In a way, it kind of takes away the element of Michael Myers being this supernatural force and just running off of pure evil, but at the same time, this is an element of the franchise that fans have just been so accustomed to. I'll talk about this issue a little later, but before the new Halloween came out, I always felt like Halloween 2 was the only sequel that really felt like it needed to be made. Okay, maybe not felt like it needed to be made, but it's the only one that actually feels natural, again, up until the new one that we have. And there's a lot in this movie that I like. It still maintains a level of creepiness to it. This time the budget's a little bigger, so Haddonfield feels a little more populated, and whenever you see Michael Myers just walking around the crowd, it's creepy because he's in costume, it's Halloween night, so anybody could just think, oh, he's just a dude walking around in a costume Halloween night, so it makes him harder to spot. Also, most of the movie takes place in the hospital that Laurie Strode is staying at, and there's always something about hospitals that just kind of freaks me out. Especially once they're abandoned, when we get to the third act of the movie, it's just a little off-putting going down these empty hallways that seem dimly lit, having this supernatural force going after you. It can be super unsettling at times, and at times the movie is effective with its atmosphere. And another thing I really like about the movie is the score. It's kind of the same score as the first movie. I mean, John Carpenter is doing the score once again, but this time accompanied by someone else. This time the score has been upgraded from a simple keyboard to a synthesizer, and it just sounds very creepy and gothic-like, which I think fits. It's one of my favorite renditions of the Halloween theme, and it's also one of my favorite horror scores. I'm hesitant to say underrated because I think everyone can agree that the score for Halloween 2 is pretty awesome. Both Donald Pleasence and Jamie Lee Curtis do a really good job in their roles, even if Laurie Strode is kind of out of commission for most of the movie. It mainly focuses on Loomis trying to hunt down Michael Myers, and Laurie Strode really isn't active until the third act in the movie, which kind of leads me to some of the issues I have with this movie. I don't love it, and it's actually kind of hard for me to get a real beat on this movie, whether I actually like it. Because the movie does really have this feeling of been there, done that. There's so many scenarios from the first Halloween movie that kind of get rehashed in this one, not to the same effect. For example, there's the moment in the first movie and this one where there's a couple about to have sex, the boyfriend goes off for a little bit, Michael Myers kills the boyfriend and then comes into the room where the girlfriend is, and the girlfriend thinks that Michael's the boyfriend, and then Michael kills the girlfriend. In this movie, the boyfriend-girlfriend equivalent are 2 hospital workers that just happen to be horny. Michael pretty much just stabs the guy. As for the woman, he shoves her face into boiling hot water and basically drowns her in that water. It's kind of inventive, but at the same time, it's very subtle. Even though this movie is a little more exploitative than the first Halloween was, there's more nudity, there's more bloodshed. It really goes to show a big difference between this and Friday the 13th, where it's not very over the top or super creative with its kills, but having the woman's face burn off as she's being drowned in boiling water is kind of inventive. And then another element that's kind of repeated from the first movie is the third act chase where Laurie's running from Michael Myers. And even though it's set in a hospital, it should be more creepy because it's more claustrophobic. You're not out in the open in a neighborhood. But Michael Myers moves even slower than before. Now, I know when it comes to both Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers, they're both killers that don't run. They just walk carefully because they know they're eventually going to catch up. But in the first Halloween movie, Michael Myers was sort of speed walking. In this one, he is sluggish. And maybe that has to do with the fact that Laurie's injured, so she's not as quick as before. But even then, it just feels kind of sluggish, and the whole movie has a very slow pace to it. The first Halloween was slow at points, but it was there to build up tension and suspense once the actual horror stuff happens. In this one, it just doesn't feel right. Again, it has the problem of been there, done that, so it just doesn't come across as effective as the first Halloween movie. Now, speaking of Laurie Strode and Michael Myers, I'm just going to say it right now, I'm not the biggest fan of the idea of making them brother and sister. I know it's an iconic relationship between these two characters that's been going on up until this new movie retconned that idea, but making them brother and sister just kind of felt like something that John Carpenter and Deborah Hill needed to make this movie a little more interesting, because it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense for Laurie Strode to be still around unless there was some connection between these two characters. And it just feels like something that Carpenter and Hill really came up with on the spot. It's not something that they thought of. It's just like, what can we do to make this a little more interesting? Why don't we just make Laurie Strode and Michael Myers siblings? I guess. I mean, we'll just write that down and see what happens. Because even then, John Carpenter, I don't think was too enthusiastic about this movie. In fact, I think the only reason he took the job to actually write this was so he could probably end the Michael Myers story. Because at the end of the movie, Michael Myers is blinded after Laurie shoots both his eyes out, and Dr. Loomis pretty much sacrifices himself by filling up an entire room with gas and then blowing them both up. Laurie survives. Dr. Loomis is blown to smithereens, or at least we think he is. And then Michael Myers walks out on fire, collapses, and is pretty much burning to a crisp. So on the whole, I feel very mixed about Halloween 2. There's a lot in it that I like. Like I mentioned, the score is fantastic. There are some cool kills here and there, and Donald Pleasence and Jamie Lee Curtis still do a really good job. But it feels too similar to the first Halloween movie. It doesn't feel like a different thing altogether. It is very sluggish, and it just doesn't have the same level of suspense that the first Halloween did. This is not a terrible movie, but it's one that I'd say watch at your own risk. If you really are curious to see what happens right after the first Halloween movie, then you might enjoy this, but at the same time, it kind of demystifies the creepy factor of the first Halloween movie. And that's my review for the original Halloween 2. Tune in tomorrow, we'll be talking about Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, which I'm really excited to talk about. And now I want to hear what you guys have to say. What are your thoughts on the original Halloween 2? Do you like it? Do you not like it so much? Let me know in the comments down below. And until next time, I hope you enjoyed this review. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, and of course leave a comment. Don't forget to support my Patreon page, follow me on social media. And until next time, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one.